sat my family down Christmas time. I said, I'm leaving the ministry. And they thought I was going through a phase. And they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be a comedian. They went, yeah, sure. I said, no, really, I'm gonna try to be a stand-up comic. I think I can make people laugh. I've made them laugh in church, and if you can make people laugh in church, you can make them laugh anywhere, I think.
Whoever said comedy is the new rock and roll, they were talking about Sam Kinison. Loud, loud, and louder. The preacher turned stand-up wasn't just a comedian, he was a force of nature. Was he telling jokes on stage? Or exorcising demons through his body? Kinison isn't to everyone's taste, that much is true. Even during his own lifetime, his material was considered crass, homophobic, and misogynistic. But was he simply a product of his upbringing? Was he playing a character? Or was he just a pig?
I'd like to congratulate Sam Kinison on being the first pig ever to introduce a rock and roll show.
Either way, let's take a closer look. Most Kinison fans know two things about his early years. He was a failed Pentecostal preacher, and he divorced twice after both wives cheated on him. Couple this with the fact that he suffered brain damage after being run over as a child, he was a powder keg waiting to explode.
There's one good thing about marriage. I don't want to put the whole institution down. There's one good thing about marriage. Best thing about marriage is that these are connected. They don't come on. Because if they did, your wife would take it as soon as you got married. She'd go, you're married now. You won't be needing that. I'll just take care of that for you, okay? Now, if you want this, it'll be in my purse or in the refrigerator.
He got his first break at Dangerfield's Comedy Club, and audiences had never seen anything like it. On comes this short, overweight guy, with long hair, wearing a trench coat. And within seconds he released his primal scream.
I spent the last 2 hours at a 7-Eleven going, Marlboro! Marlboro! Cigarettes!
He wasn't simply telling jokes, he was unleashing all his frustrations. It was a rant, told with comedic timing. His friend and contemporary, Bill Hicks, said, "What I learned from Sam was this. He was the first guy I ever saw to go on stage and not in any way ask the audience to like him. That gave me confidence because then I knew you could just be yourself." Everyone instantly knew Sam was something different. Listen to how the legendary Rodney Dangerfield introduces him.
Here's a guy who's rather unusual. And I love people who are different, you know. When I say rather unusual, you know what I mean when you meet him, okay? We all love him here. Let's have a nice, warm reception for Sam Kinison, okay? Here we are, Sammy.
Now hear how David Letterman introduces him for the first time.
Okay, well, we're in for something now, folks. My next guest is making his network television debut tonight, and we believe it's long overdue. He is one of the strangest and most original comedians working today. Brace yourselves. I'm not kidding. Please welcome Sam Kinison.
He certainly knew how to leave an impression. This wasn't just stand-up. This was heavy metal comedy. Kinison quickly rose to fame. His no-holds-barred style comedy took shots at the church, war, the government, and women. It could be argued that he was intentionally playing for shocks, because he had as many haters as he did admirers. Even for the 80s, much of his material was not politically correct.
You had some protesters at your show last night in Syracuse, and
Yeah.
there's a group here in Rochester that's planning to do the same.
Oh, they
tonight.
are?
Yeah.
Wow.
What's your feeling?
I don't know what they're trying to accomplish. I don't know what their message is. I mean, I'm not on public radio or television doing my routines. It's a show that you have to come and see and pay your money to see. I think the Constitution allows people to be entertained by what they consider entertainment, you know, and that's all I'm doing. I'm a comedian, and it's a comedy show. And if I was David Duke down in Louisiana, I would understand this kind of reaction. But basically, I think they're totally misinterpreting me and maybe even using me to establish a name for themselves in the local area as some kind of new AIDS awareness group. We're trying to figure out what the protest is about. I guess they don't agree with the jokes, but, you know, I mean, what do you do if you don't agree with the jokes? You just don't go to the show. You don't support the entertainment.
Personally, I don't think he needed to stoop so low, as he's a better comedian than that. But that's not to say he didn't possess an unbelievable stage presence and a natural instinct for constructing a joke and making comedic observations.
Yeah. Yeah, I read it, folks. I read that book. He's on the cross. 30, 40 Christians standing around going, it's a shame that he has to die. And Jesus is going, well, maybe I wouldn't have to. Somebody get a ladder and a pair of pliers.
His multiple failed marriages was a well he often dipped into. He never seemed to tire of sharing his pain. But he had a brilliant mind for satire as well. He had a genuine belief in God and couldn't stand the hypocritical nature of televangelism.
You actually were a preacher.
Yeah,
and I find that...
But I got out with a little honor. I mean, I got out honorably. I got out without a scandal. I mean, I felt all these hormones and things going on.
What I want to say, was it a total sham for you?
No, of course not.
You believed it when you were doing it?
Oh, I'm going to face the guy someday, so I got to say yes. In the presence of all my friends, I have to say that, I share a faith that a lot of people have, that there's a God, and I believe in it.
As he became more and more successful, he started hanging out with rock bands, such as Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses. The sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle was everything he wanted. He even recorded his own music videos, such as the popular cover of Wild Thing, and appeared in multiple music videos. He was an MTV star as much as anything else. For a former man of the church, he seemed hell-bent on indulging in every vice possible.
Were you ever in love with Jessica?
I was never in love. We had a short affair because checkout time was 2.
But Kinison was smart enough to know that it wasn't just about saying shocking and offensive things for the sake of it. He knew he had to make it funny, and would work on his craft.
That particular joke was actually a true story that I was told out here by a limo driver for a funeral home. And when he told it to me, it just blew my mind. It was like one of the most horrifying images I'd ever had. It never occurred to me somebody would do that to a corpse after they were dead. And it just stuck, it hung with me for a couple of weeks.
So you decided to tell it to me.
And I thought, wait a second, how can I get the audience to feel that same shock thing and then pull a joke out of it? And it took about a year and a half to find an angle to where you could actually pull a joke out of it, which was to take the corpse's point of view and go, oh, hey.
No matter what people felt about his brand of humor, there's no denying that he broke new ground and had that X-Factor star quality. Just 1 year after his breakthrough in Dangerfields, he was starring alongside him in Back to School.
Good answer. Good answer. I like the way you think. I'm going to be watching you.
A good teacher. He really seems to care. About what, I have no idea.
And the great Bill Hicks was so enamored with him, he could almost be him.
When did mediocrity and banality become a good image for your children? I want my children to listen to people who rocked! I don't care if they died in puddles of their own vomit! I want someone who plays from his heart! Mommy, the man Bill told me to listen to has a blood bubble on his nose. Shut up and listen to him play!
In 1992, Sam was tragically killed in a car accident after being hit by a drunk driver. He was just 38 years old. And it wasn't just his family and fans that mourned his loss. Many of his fellow comedians appreciated his talent and influence, including George Carlin, who dedicated his HBO special Jamming in New York to him. And a tribute show dedicated to Sam included contributions from the likes of Jim Carrey and Robin Williams.
It's a very strange thing, death. Obviously, sometimes if they leave you intact, they put you in a box, give you a smile on your face like you have gas. With Sam, part of me wanted to say, he's one of the few people in the world you want to say, cremate him, and we'll snort the ashes.
You don't need to necessarily agree with someone's artistic output in order to appreciate the talent of the artist. Does all of Sam Kinison's body of work still hold up? Probably not. But if he was still around today, he would definitely be smart enough to change and adapt the targets of his tirades. But this was rock and roll comedy, and some are just destined to live fast and die young.
Is there any subject that you say, oh, I'm not going to talk about, or any person you say I'm not going to talk about?
That's interesting. Well, there's a couple things that I found that it's kind of hard to approach comedically. One of them is abortions.
Yeah.
There's not really a way to find a joke on that. Or suicide. You know, it's kind of a thing that is just, you know, it's kind of hard to find a joke that, yeah, these two guys killed themselves.
Yeah.
And over an abortion, you know, it's like, well, you know. Yeah, but I don't really approach comedy that way. I just kind of, if I find something that's funny, then I go for it, and I try to make a joke out of it. And